Hey everybody, Mike with Games Played Badly, and today on Session 0 we have Eric with Maps and Quests. If you've been following the TTRPG community on Twitter, you know who he is because he's all over the place, supporting everybody, boosting everyone's posts, and I'm really excited to talk to him about his map making, and he makes some amazing maps, and he has actually been doing some recent collaborations with other TTRPG. Other TTRPG creators. Oh, goodness gravy. Some of the collaborations that he's done and that he's going to be doing. And if you want to get a shirt like this for you, go ahead and check out gemmed-firefly.com and use our discount code Badly15, BADLY 15 for 15% off your order at checkout. Well, let's get to chatting with Eric. That interview starts now. Hey Eric, how are you?
I am fantastic, Mike. How are you doing this lovely evening?
It is. It's cold as hell here, but it's the end of March, beginning of April. What do you want in the Midwest?
Exactly. I lived out there for a few years, so yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, right. I although this weekend is supposed to be in the we're supposed to be in the 70s for like a week or something.
Nice.
So I'm pretty impressed.
That's
no. Go ahead.
I mean, that's good for where you are for this time of year.
Oh,
for a
agreed.
week.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. So we've been talking for the last couple of months. I meant to have you on a lot earlier, and we just kind of never really connected. But your presence in the TTRPG community has been pretty awesome. I mean, you've been a big supporter of everybody, and everybody seems to really like your personality, and they like your maps. I like your maps. Why don't you tell me about how you got into map making?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So how I got into map making was actually fairly recently, within the last probably 6 months or so, with a campaign that I am the dungeon master for. I started running into some issues, I guess you might say, with some of the available maps on the market and how my party likes to play. My party likes to be very tactical in how they handle combats and really everything. From my Tabaxi rogue who prefers climbing up things and jumping from building to building or from tree to tree, Tarzan style, to my half-elf rogue who is trying to sneak through every shadow that exists on the map.
Right.
My cleric who likes to sit back as far away as possible and hit things with guiding bolt as much as possible. So one of the things that I ran into there was that a lot of the maps that I could find, either paid or free ones that some of the bigger names post on Reddit and that sort of thing, is they're kind of freebies to get more people into their Patreons and that sort of thing, were that they weren't big enough for how my party likes to play. Because a lot of them that were out there, maybe like 20 by 20, that sort of thing. Realistically, on a 20 by 20 map, pretty much everything in the game can go from one side of the map to the other in one turn.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Well, yeah, it depends on how you scale it, but yeah, absolutely, you're right.
Yeah, it's or at least within 2 turns, 3 turns, fairly quickly. And then once you start throwing in some of the more tactical elements, like if you have ranged attackers who are trying to hit things from 100, 200, 300 feet away, if they're willing to roll with disadvantage on that attack roll, there that map becomes way too small, way too quickly.
Yeah.
For example, my cleric took the spell sniper feat at level 4, which in 5e doubles the range on spells with an attack roll out to 240 feet in some cases.
Oh yeah, absolutely, right. Especially if you're, what is it? the sorcerer or whatever that
Mhm.
that gets basically the sorcerer points and can amplify or
Yep.
increase the range of their spells.
The distant spell meta magic,
Yes,
or
yeah, the meta magic, right?
or the there's the Eldritch Spear invocation for warlocks,
Mm-hmm.
which puts the range of Eldritch Blast out to 300 feet.
Oh, jeez.
Also, if you ever want to break the game and your DM's brain, here's a fun fact for you. You can stack the Eldritch Spear invocation, the Warlock meta magic for distant spell, and the spell Sniper feat, and hit things 1,200 feet away with Eldritch Blast.
That's true. I just calculated that in my head. I was like, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, if you ever just want to, just turn yourself into an actual spell sniper, do all three of those things.
Right. Yeah, right. You hit something from a mile away at that point. You're like, come on. You're basically a Scud missile. It's like,
So,
yeah.
but that's how I got into the map making end of things. Was I saw a hole that,
Mhm.
if you will, in the market where I just wasn't seeing a whole lot there to kind of fit what I was needing.
Mhm.
And I started making them, and a couple people in my party, one who's actually been playing D&D and TTRPGs longer than I have. He's been playing for close to 30 years. Specifically was saying, these are really good. These are better than some of the ones out there that I've paid money for. You could probably sell these and make money. And I said, you're all crazy. That's insane.
Right.
And then in December, I finally kind of bit the bullet and said, okay, we're going to try this. So I made the Twitter account, which I didn't really do anything with until January.
Mm-hmm.
Made a Facebook account, which I still don't really do much with, except basically on the Facebook account, I post memes there.
Right. Yeah, right.
Because I haven't figured out how to use Facebook for advertising yet without paying them for ads.
Yeah, right.
And that's kind of where it started, was with that and kind of seeing that need there. And there's my cat making his, customary appearance.
Chuck.
He's the actual star of the show, the cat.
Oh, yeah. The anus is perfect. That was a good shot.
Who doesn't want a cat anus in the middle of the interview?
Whatever. Yeah, COVID. Anyway, I have noticed, I didn't really think about it because I thought your maps, I was like, man, these maps are really large. And I didn't really equate it to what you were attempting to do until you just explained it. So from that standpoint, a lot of tactical movement, a lot of movement in general. You can't really have somebody who has decent cover at distance without having a larger map. So that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was shooting for there. And, it's one of those things where just based on how my party plays, most of them are newer to D&D and TTRPGs in general.
Mm-hmm.
But through resources like D&D Beyond,
Right.
5e is just so remarkably and ridiculously easy to introduce people.
Right. It's a gateway drug.
Exactly. It is. I think just how they like to play, something like maybe D&D 4e might be a better option for them, kind of once we get through this campaign. But I also don't want to switch editions of D&D mid-campaign because I've seen somebody try and do that before, and it ended disastrously.
I'm going to tell you, from the standpoint of conversions go, a 4e to 5e conversion would probably be brutal.
Yeah,
I mean 4e, and we were talking about this earlier about possibly trying to switch up systems or switch up editions to fit your gameplay. 4e was definitely 4e was definitely tactical from the standpoint it was very miniature centric, if that's tactical. The one thing that I did not like about it was the instant gratification aspect of it. It didn't feel like you really were earning anything.
Yeah, that I can absolutely agree with. And I think, it's one of those things, every version of D&D, every TTRPG, not just D&D, they all have some sort of drawback that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of the perfect TTRPG existing. Maybe it does, and I don't know about it. If it does, that would be fun.
I'm sure people will mention it.
We'll have comments at this point in the video.
Right, exactly. Everyone call in 555-1212. Let us know if I was streaming this, but I'm not. But so yeah, I mean those are interesting. Those are interesting problems that you had to deal with. So I understand more as to why your maps are the way they are. But there was something recently. Didn't you do a collaboration with somebody to kind of do a one-shot adventure with your maps? And
yeah, I've gotten to do a couple. There was one I did with Dungeons and Dinners. That was actually my first collaboration that I did. And then I recently did one with Warlock Works as well, where we started off that one with a slightly larger map that kind of funneled down into, if you will, a smaller map,
I get you.
which was a crypt underneath a mausoleum, because there are some places where it's just not going to be a big space. It's not. A crypt under a mausoleum is not going to be a huge 50 by 50 map. It's going to be smaller. But it still worked there. So, and then the one with Dungeons and Dinners wound up being a little bit bigger map because it was designed to be we titled the adventure "The Mansion of the Mad Mage."
I just saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So mansions in and of themselves are large buildings by definition.
Right.
So we got to be a little bit bigger with that one. That one was an interesting map to make. Just from an architectural standpoint, trying to make a map where having 5-foot thick walls for players to crawl through actually makes sense.
Oh, right.
And having that work from an architectural and scale standpoint as well. That's a whole other thing with maps that I saw where I had some issues was scaling of interior spaces for TTRPG play, if you will. It's one of those things where a 20 by 20 room in the real world can comfortably hold a lot more people than it can in a D&D space where each character gets its own 5-foot square and you can't be in the square of another character unless you are a size larger or smaller than that character.
Yeah, I again, those are all really good points. I don't think, I think because you were having to deal with players who kind of push that, push the status quo, I would have never even thought about that. I was just like, you know what, cool. I always looked at it like they're not occupying a 5-foot square, but that's their swing radius. So nobody else can be in that 5-foot area because 2.5 feet around them is basically, death. It's like this is where how they're swinging. So I understand why the maps are the way they are, but with you talking about it that way, a 20 by 20 room can hold a hell of a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. You can fit a ton of people in a 20 by 20 room. If you don't believe me, go to a concert and see how many people fit in 400 square feet at a concert, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
Don't go to a concert right now. Don't go to a concert right now. Please don't. For
I'm not
everyone's health
sure
and
if you
safety,
can,
don't go to
but
a concert right now.
I believe live music. I miss live music. I might. No, I wouldn't. But well, so those are so you're solving a logistical problem with the maps that you're making. I like that idea very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's when I really started to think about it, I thought I can't be the only person to have ever had this problem before. When my players started saying, "Oh, you can sell these," because I just thought there's too many people have played D&D and TTRPGs for too many years for me to be the first person to have ever had this problem. It just doesn't make sense for me. The first person who have ever had this issue.
Well, it kind of depends. It depends if you're playing with miniatures. That problem is because of miniatures. It's like You can't. It's the size of the base. It's the size of the miniature itself. It's movement. All this other stuff. When you don't play with miniatures and you play with the theater of the mind, it tends to work out a lot better. But I mean, once you have physical objects that can interact and obstruct each other, and they aren't necessarily to the right scale either, then yeah, that kind of causes a problem. I think that's part of the reason why D&D maps are the way they are. They're built for that 28, 32 millimeter scale miniature.
Absolutely. And you know, we discussed earlier a little about theater of mind, and for people who can, you know, run those large scale tactical combats with theater of mind, have all my respect.
Yeah, right.
It's just not something I can do.
Right.
My brain just doesn't process that way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, DMs have so much already to do, and it was I watched this video and I actually retweeted there. I forgot the guy's name. I'll link him in the description below. But he did this video about active listening or active hearing, active listening, and it really was very much to the point of, for instance, you say that your mind's kind of going everywhere, so it's really hard for you to kind of do the theater of the mind thing type stuff. It's very similar to the fact that DMs, because they are so into trying to cut off players or think ahead of them and things like that, that they're not actually listening to their players. They're like, wait, these 3 orcs are coming out from the side. I got to remember to trigger those, and there's initiative happening over here and things like that. So there's a lot going on. So I totally understand it from the standpoint of having a map that large in your mind that people are jumping off of houses and climbing in trees and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. It's insane. There are really, really good DMs out there. I'm okay. I'm not that good.
Exactly. It's, you know, it's a running joke in my party that I'm the okayest DM they've ever had. I'm not even the world's okayest DM. I'm just the okayest one that they've had. But much like my running joke on Twitter that I am the world's okayest purveyor of TTRPG and D&D combat and encounter maps.
Yeah, so I totally get what you're saying. Now I totally understand why your maps are as large. I just thought, I was like, bang for my buck, I get this huge map. This is awesome.
Well, yeah, and the other thing that I hadn't even thought of, and I'm the one who's, you know, selling these maps, that Brett from Dungeons and Dinners, when I talked with him a while back, brought up, was that another thing with the bigger maps is, if you need a smaller map, it's much easier to make a big map smaller by cropping it down,
right,
than it is to make a small map bigger by stretching it out. And now suddenly you have, you know, instead of your, you know, 20 foot by 20 foot room, now that room is 100 feet by 100 feet, and it doesn't work for any scaling, regardless of how you want to look at it.
Yeah, I would say, to be honest, that was exactly what I was thinking about when I was looking at your maps. I'm like, you know, these are so large, I may not need all this, but I can chop this up. And if I don't use this part of the map, I can always use that later.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was something I hadn't even thought of. Mm-hmm. And then Brett brought it up. You know, this has been a couple of months ago now. And I said, that's a really good point. And I hadn't even thought of that.
Do you have anything, any projects coming up that you want to mention? I mean, anything cool? Any collaborations?
Yeah, so I've got a couple out there that I'm working on, commission pieces for various streamers that unfortunately I can't really talk about at the moment because they're going to appear on a stream, and I don't want their players to get, you know, meta ideas about what's going to happen.
That. Yep.
I have recently started working on some of the custom stuff that I use in my maps from a, you know, terrain standpoint and lighting standpoint and that sort of stuff. I finally figured out what the Dungeon Draft program is looking for in those to actually function in Dungeon Draft. So I'm starting the process of packaging those, because the Dungeon Draft map making application works off of what are called pack files in Dungeon Draft speak. Figuring out what Dungeon Draft actually wants in the images that go into those files so that Dungeon Draft can function properly with those images so people can use them in maps. So that's kind of my next big project, is getting some of that stuff packaged out so that people can use it, in Dungeon Draft to make their own maps.
That's cool.
Because, at the end of the day, it's one of those things where I want people to be able to, to make the maps and use them. Even if they're not my maps, people need the maps in some way, shape, form, or fashion. If I can make that a little bit better for them. The other big thing I have going on right now is the Legion tier on my Patreon, which is a phenomenal deal in my personal opinion. And that I was going to close at the end of March because I'd initially opened it as kind of a celebration tier for hitting 1,000 followers on Twitter. But then I said, yeah, we're going to keep it open. Why not? Am I maybe insane? Probably. Is this the best example of my insanity? Not by a long shot. So yeah, that's pretty stellar deal in my personal humble opinion. Granted, I am jaded since it's my deal that I'm running.
Right.
But yeah, with that, it's $2 US, which works out to like €2, 2 British pounds, 3 Canadian dollars, 3 Australian dollars, based on the exchange rates that Patreon uses. Per map pack, you get 4 maps in the day, 4 map variants with each map pack in day and night versions, gridded and gridless, 70 PPI and 256 PPI. And weather effects overlays, which I think is actually something else that I'm doing a little bit differently, is making the weather effects overlays separate from the map itself, which is something I started doing fairly early on. There's something else I noticed where, you'll see maps where it's actively raining on the map, and it's, okay, that map's really, really cool, but I don't need it to be raining when I'm using the map.
Right. Yeah, you have a ton of variations for all your maps, night and day, and all the lighting, gridless, sizing, weather. I mean, there are a ton of options. Yeah,
and that's one of the reasons I do that, is so that people have options, because you might like the layout of a particular map, but you don't need it in a standard summer woodland variant. You're running Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden, so you need it to be very, very cold and snowy. Or you're running a nautical pirate themed campaign, so you need it to be kind of beachfront or in a jungle or something of that nature. So I try and throw some options out there with what I put out there, and usually there's some crazy Feywild variant or something of that nature, but that's only because I have this weird personal obsession with the Feywild in D&D.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So if people don't like the Feywild versions, I apologize. That's my own personal obsession bleeding in.
Right. Well, you're kind of a stalwart in the TTRPG solidarity community. I think you're a great guy, and I've loved your creations. As a matter of fact, I'm a Patreon subscriber, to be honest.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I subscribed early on because I'm like, I like what he's doing, and I want to support him. Even though I'm not sure I'm going to need any maps right now, I download everything. I'm like a pack rat. So I subscribe to you. I subscribe to One Page Mage and a couple other ones, and I just go up every month and just grab everything they've created and bring it down. I don't need it right now, but I know that eventually I'm going to. So I just make sure I grab everything.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. And, I know plenty of dungeon masters, myself included, who hoard maps, because you never know when I might need this, or I might need this, or
right.
Oh dear Lord, my party's going off the rails again. I'm gonna
It happens all the time.
Exactly. That's honestly, that's where the most fun moments happen as a dungeon master and as a player, is when it's just, just complete unscripted chaos occurs.
Well, what I was doing for a while was I just go up, I search for, forest map, and whatever came up on Google, I just download that and we just use it. And, but I'm like, after a while, I just, I started looking at your stuff. I'm like, it's so much better. I could really use that, because there are actual areas for some tactical stuff. I mean, we don't do we do some tactical stuff, but normally it's like, okay, you got ambushed, here we are, you're basically on top of each other, and they're not very strategic. But we're starting to do some more, as George Bush would say, strategery.
Oh, I remember when he said that.
Yeah, it was fantastic. You can say what you want about the guy, but he had a great way of twisting the English language. He was fantastic.
Well, and I think the other day I described the English language as the Frankenstein's monster of all of the languages anyway. But
absolutely,
it's a linguistic Frankenstein's monster.
Right. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what else you do, and I know everybody else is too. It's finally glad. I'm glad to finally get a chance to talk to you, and a face to a name type thing, right?
Yeah.
And I wish you all the best. I know you're going to do great. Everyone loves you, as I said. I know, because I'm one of them, and I hope that you are immensely successful in everything that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Same to you as well.
So I have a stupid, goofy thing that I do, which I didn't do. I don't think I did the last video. I do a quick fire round. So I'm going to give you a question, and you just give me an answer. And you can, if you want to expound on it, you can. But sometimes it's more fun if you just throw it out there. I don't know. But
okay. So it's kind of a thought association.
Yes, it's like a word association almost, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
I kind of like that. I asked some mundane questions because I forget to write them down. But I will, spring or fall?
Fall.
You're a fall person. All right.
Love fall. Love the crispness in the air.
Oh, okay.
The changing of the seasons. It's perfect hoodie weather. Perfect. Early fall is perfect for hoodie and shorts, which my wife makes fun of me for, but that's my signature look in the fall.
Right. Cake or pie?
Cake any day of the week and twice on Sunday, which I find really funny because my wife's more of a pie person.
Yeah. I find that the lines between cake and pie get a little blurry. Some people want to call some pies cakes, and some cakes are called pies. I don't get it, but I like it all.
Yes, I mean, I didn't know yes was an acceptable answer there.
Right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
You take
black.
Black, just straight black coffee.
Straight black. Which is probably, going to give me an ulcer in 20 or 30 years or something like that. But
yeah, I used to drink back in the day when I was early in my IT career. We spent a lot of sleepless nights working on projects, and we would have pots and pots and pots of. I would have 4 or 5 pots of coffee a day, and if a pot was sitting there from the night before, I just microwave it and drink it. I mean, I was unabashedly addicted to coffee. I don't drink as much nowadays as I've gotten older because it keeps me up at night, to be honest.
Fair enough. Yeah, I also being in IT, I feel that pain, and I have done that.
Yeah, right.
I can tell you a story about my longest time working on a project straight, but
yeah, I'm sure. I believe it. Oh God, I have so many stories.
We both experienced that.
Yeah. I have war wounds because of it. I think I have a hernia because of it, actually.
Yeah. We've both taken that psychic damage.
Absolutely. Look, my boss was a psionicist, and he was really good at it. Very high level. Thanksgiving or Christmas?
Christmas.
Okay.
I have no idea why, but I've liked Christmas better. I don't know. That might go back to many, many, many years ago when
Right.
I was in retail and retail management, to never really getting to enjoy Thanksgiving at that point in time,
Right.
because of Black Friday. And I had to, be at a store at 3 or 4 a.m.
Right.
at the latest. So that probably dates back to that, where I was just like, for me, Thanksgiving was a day when I just had to go to bed really early,
Right.
or go into work really, really tired, one of the two.
Are you a morning person or an evening person?
More of a morning person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more like a permanently exhausted pigeon, probably from not getting enough sleep, but but tend to be more of a morning person, at least more so than most, I guess.
Yeah.
Just have always been one who kind of got up early and that sort of thing. So
Yeah. My husband can't stand it because, part of it is, we'll go out and we'll have some adult beverages, and I'll have quite a few of them, and we'll come home and he wakes up and he is just miserable, and I'm up at the crack of dawn, just chipper and ready to rock and roll. So, and I've been like that my entire life.
yep, my wife and I have actually a very similar relationship with that. So.
Yeah. Eric, it was an absolute
Jim,
pleasure. It was an absolute pleasure. Let's
it
let's do it
great
again.
fun talking to you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I again, I wish you the best of luck, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. It was great talking to you, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to check in with you again. If you have anything new that's coming up that's you want to talk about, I'd love to discuss it. Just because I find kind of what you do fast. I mean, when I was younger, I doodle some maps, but I really like what you're doing. So yeah, anytime you want to talk, my Zoom connection is open.
I appreciate it. It's been a blast. It's been a pleasure. We've had some good laughs. Hopefully, everyone listening has some good laughs to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope so. Although I feel like there are moments where I'm sitting here just laughing to pieces, and then I'm just thinking about all the other people on the other side of the screen. It's just crickets. So, I can't be everything to everybody, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, you can't please everyone all the time.
This is true. Well, at least they can't. Well, I guess they could tell me if they didn't like it. Anyway, they've been kind so far.
Your interviews are good. So yeah, I have some good people on. I guess I have to include myself in that.
Yeah.
Even though I'm still not sure how I feel about that moniker personally.
Yeah, you always fight that one too.
I do. I'm like, especially for a while, I would see it in, I see myself in lists amongst names that I consider to be really big names. I'm like, what am I doing there?
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah. It's interesting. I kind of feel the same way because, when it comes to Follow Friday, all of a sudden, like just random people, I don't even, like I follow them, but I mean, I've never really interacted with them. All of a sudden are tagging me and I'm like, wow, I'm taken aback and just thankful that people would think that I'm even worth putting there,
Yeah, absolutely. I found myself tagged in it was a Follow Friday thing a couple of weeks ago. I actually took a screen cap of it on my phone because I couldn't believe it. By somebody, okay, these are map makers you need to check out. And I'm seeing, some really big names in the, TTRPG cartography scene. And then I see my Twitter handle there. I'm just like, is that a typo?
Well, Eric, again, thanks for being on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I have gut laughed till my gut cannot laugh any further. And we will chat again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Best of luck with everything. And I look forward to speaking to you again in the near future.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.